Hi, I'm Jaclyn Morgan, and I'm about to graduate from Central Washington University with a bachelor's in psychology and minor in sociology. This presentation is about applying for graduate school. So first off, the reason I decided to pursue a bachelor's in psychology is because I would like to be a mental health counselor. My ultimate goal is to have a private practice someday in the far off future. And the first step of getting your licensure is to complete a degree. This is a list of the requirements in Washington State to get your license to practice mental health counseling. You can find the details of this list at doh.wa.gov. The requirements are pretty similar everywhere, but they're a little bit different state to state. Of course, the first thing that you have to do is receive your degree. It has to be at least a master's degree or a doctorate in psychology, clinical psychology, mental health counseling, etc., something related to the field. Another thing required about this program that you choose has to have an internship and/or practicum, which is really important, not just because it's required for the licensure, but also because it's going to give you this hands-on experience during your graduate program so that when you're done, when you graduate, you feel the confidence to go out into the working world and get a really good job in the field. It's also important because you have to get a job in the field working under a licensed mental health counselor because you need 3,000 hours of supervised experience in order to get your license. You can't get your license until you've got that experience. So that's another thing that's really important. Aside from what is required for licensure, when you're applying for graduate programs, you want to make sure that they are accredited by a reliable institution. Accreditation is very important. There's a number of accreditation institutions that are recognized in order to get your licensure, but you want to make sure that they're reliable before you sign up for the program. And aside from just getting the license, you want to make sure that they are recognized by CHIA, which is the Council for Higher Education Accreditation. You can find information from CHIA at www.chia.org. They have some really great resources there about bad accreditors that you want to avoid. They have a database of institutions or universities rather that are accredited by institutions that they recognize, and the most important or valuable piece of information that I found on the CHIA website was a PDF of all the accreditation institutions, whether they're recognized by CHIA, it tells you, and then whether or not they're recognized by the USDE, it also tells you that. My advisor told me to seek institutions that were accredited by CACREP, which is the Council for Counseling and Related Educational Programs. Interestingly enough, CACREP is recognized by CHIA but not by the USDE. That's not really something you need to worry about because the USDE doesn't allow for eligibility of certain programs if they are not receiving federal funding, or sometimes programs just choose not to seek USDE recognition. So I think being recognized by CHIA ends up being a little bit more important, but there are psychology-based accreditation institutions that are recognized both by CHIA and by the USDE. One example of that would be the American Psychological Association Commission on Accreditation. So it's kind of another one that you can look for if you're applying for programs in this field of psychology. That's a great institution that you would like to have your university accredited by. The programs that I personally am applying for are Masters of Science in Mental Health Counseling programs, and my top two schools are Western Washington University and Central Washington University. I've lived in Washington my whole life. I would really like to stay in state, and going to a public university that's in my state of residency will hopefully get me a better price as well. Both of these programs have an internship and practica, which is great, and they are both accredited by CACREP, so that's awesome. Both of these programs are also super competitive. At Western, they accept 6 people per year into the program, and at Central, they accept 8 people per year. So 6 people at Western and 8 people at Central. Very competitive, kind of scary, but also means that they're selective they're able to pay really close attention to each student, make sure everybody gets the experience and information that they need. And they have basically 100% success rate at both of these institutions and in both of these programs. They also are very similar in terms of what they include in the program. At Western, it's a 91 quarter credit hour for non-thesis and 97 quarter credit hour for the thesis option. At Central, it is a 90 credit quarter hour. They both have practica, as I said. At Western, it's a 2 quarters of applied experience under supervision at their counseling training clinic, and that's during the first year. At Central, at Central, it's 3 practica courses. So instead of like at Western, they just have the 2 quarters of applied experience. At Central, it's 3 quarters, and they're separate classes. It's Practica 1, Practica 2, Practica 3. So the first year, you're taking a practica each quarter. And then both of them also include the internship during the second year. At Western, you apply at the end of the first year, and then you're applying at just appropriate agencies in the area where you can complete the internship. It could really be anywhere. It's just that you do have to commute to do it because it's a face-to-face program, and your internship obviously is face-to-face as well. So, and then at Central, it's a full-time 4-month internship experience where you work with clients in the community. And both of these programs also have very similar application requirements. Everywhere that I've looked into applying, because I do have, besides these 2 schools that are my top 2 choices, I have about 5 fallback schools that I'm hoping to apply for. They all have application fees, so I haven't really decided what ones I'm going to apply for, but I will be applying to some additional schools as well. With the application fee in mind, at Western, the application fee was $100. At Central, it was $50. Any application is going to start out asking for your personal information. Then it's going to have you copy your transcripts and send them copies of your transcripts. For me, I have one for my direct transfer associates and then one for my bachelor's program, my undergrad at Central. And then you got to get your recommendations. For both Western and Central, they asked for 3. I chose 2 professors, one of which was my advisor, and then for the 3rd person, I chose my employer. And then after that, you have to do your personal statement. For Central, it's a 600-word maximum. So I took my personal statement and kind of had to slim it down. It ended up being really nice because it was succinct. It had all the main bullet points that it needed, but nothing flowery, no additional personal information that didn't need to be in there. And I ended up liking that 600-word version better than the longer one I had originally written. And then finally, this is the area where I messed up, ended up kind of being a happy accident, but I did make a mistake, is with the GRE. The GRE is the Graduate Record Examination. You're going to have to take it for pretty much any graduate program that you apply for, or business school. I've read that some programs don't require the GRE, but everything that I've looked at does require it. You can find the GRE at ets.org. This is where you're going to sign up, and you will get test prep information at ets.org as well. It is a 3-part exam. It's verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and analytical writing. It is a 3-hour and 45-minute standardized test. With breaks, it's going to take over 4 hours to take that test. It costs about $200, just a little bit over $200. And one thing to make sure that you realize is that you do not get your grades right away. It takes a while to get them. That's the mistake that I made. I paid and signed up for my GRE for late January, and my application deadlines were February 1st. So because of the competitiveness of my top 2 programs, I decided to apply for fall 2018 to give myself extra time so that I wasn't turning my applications in after the deadline. I also ended up paying $50 to reschedule my GRE for April 5th to give myself a little bit extra time to prepare for it, because I read that they look mostly at your GPA and your GRE grades just to decide who to accept into the programs. So something to think about, the GRE, it's really important. You're gonna have to take it for graduate school, and then if you do well and you get accepted to the program, or they're considering to accept you to the program, most places will have an interview, and that's kind of the final process. I have been looking at examples of appropriate interviews and not so great interviews and trying to kind of get my footing there on how I might deal with that. I get a little bit nervous in those kinds of situations. Just this situation, doing this video, makes me nervous, so it should be interesting. But I do feel very passionate about the subject of psychology and about mental health counseling. I have done really well in this program at Central. It has been so enjoyable. I cannot stress enough how much I appreciate all of the information that I have gained through this program, and I am so excited for the next step in my journey. So wish me luck on getting into one of my top 2 schools, and if not, wish me luck on getting into one of those fallback schools. Good luck to all of you on your future endeavors. If you're applying for jobs, if you're applying for graduate school, regardless, you have your bachelor's degree. That is a huge achievement. So congratulations to all of us, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.